Hello, welcome to Financial Insider Weekly. I'm your host, Michael Gray, CPA. My guest today is Paul Duran, and Paul is a banker at Bridge Bank in San Jose. He's been there for about 5 years, and before that he was at Comerica for 18 years, and he's been in banking continuously since about 1982, so has quite a background in banking. And today, Paul and I are going to be talking about small business financing.
Well, thank you, Mike.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Okay, so sort of a fun time right now. Today is January 17th, 2016. You'll be seeing this sometime later. Our viewers will. And but this Friday is Inauguration Day.
Yes.
Mr. Trump will be President of the United States. So everybody's sort of looking with anticipation, wondering what the heck is going to happen. So Paul, I'm going to throw it to you for, just to sort of get us started here. What do you think about this? You see some changes coming for banking?
Well, no one knows for certain, clearly, but we're seeing some indicators that indicate 2017 should be an exciting time for us. The stock market clearly now likes bank stocks. We've seen the run-up of the 20 or 30% since Election Day. The thought out there should be an easing of some of the regulations. We've had a tremendous amount of we've had a lot of increase in regulations over the last several years with Dodd-Frank and Graham-Bailey and some of the other regulatory acts out there. And we've seen a growth in the cost of regulatory regulations and compliance. So I think people are kind of feeling that maybe there might be a little easing on some of that and getting back to just some common sense ways of doing business. So it's going to be exciting to see what happens. I'm sure we're all looking forward to it. I think we're in a great place for 2017. I think the industry is excited to go charging ahead.
Okay, there we go. So it's a new year too, so it's sort of like, we're turning the new page and new year, new presidency, and so forth. So, and a mood to again. Maybe ease up, as you were saying, on some of these regulations for business to hopefully make it a little easier to operate. So what would you say is overall is the state of the banking industry today relating to small business banking?
I think it's a great time. I think we know that small business is the engine that kind of runs the economy. It's where job creation happens, and as bankers we can play an important role in that. So I think we've seen our customers doing well. We see some exciting indicators out there that says they'll continue to do well in the near future, and I think for us it's a very exciting time for the small medium business owner. Clearly we'll see what happens, like I said, in 2017, but there is some strong indications that demand is maintaining or increasing for products, services. We've seen customers expand in 2015, 2016, and expect them to reap some of the benefits of that in 2017. So a very exciting time. I think it's one of the better times I can remember.
Yeah, that's good. Well, let's knock on wood. Hope that we continue this outlook. All right. Well, some newspapers have said that it's hard to get financing today for a small business. Is that true?
Well, I think, we got to look back. It's about 10 years ago we went into a downturn. So
right.
Coming out of that for a few years, it was a little bit tougher. I think just consumers were shy of spending money, and for several reasons it was a little bit tougher. But those days, I think, are behind us. I think banks, like I said, we want to lend money. We want to see small businesses grow. And so I think it's an exciting time, and there's a lot of opportunity. I think the industry is ready to lend. There's what can we do to help kind of attitude, and I don't see a lot of hurdles. I mean, we're still going to have to follow some common sense and how we make money, how we loan money, but I still think it's a really good time for it.
Okay, good. how does a bank evaluate the creditworthiness of a small business? So what are the underwriting criteria?
Well, I think you get a couple different levels there, and that question is kind of interesting because I think you've got the micro business, you've got small business, and then medium business, and each one kind of presents its own challenges. Primarily, what I deal with is small and medium businesses. So, what we're going to look at is what is your track record? What have you done in terms of being profitable or showing you have the ability to repay the debt? The other things banks are going to evaluate is what are your secondary sources of repayment? What kind of collateral do you have? An inventory, AR, and we also a lot of times look towards the owners and those who maybe have an ownership stake that have to guarantee and what is their wherewithal. So the banks will look at what is, again, cash flow and, again, what is some collateral. Other banks, there's actually, in the small business segment, it's kind of an interesting approach with some of the larger banks is that they do take a line of credit request and they do kind of credit score, like a credit card. And there are some people who are running a volume shop, kind of, so to speak. So that's still out there, and that goes to people's personal credit scores. You have, now in the really small business sector, let's talk about that for a second, because I think that's where businesses are going to get started and generate. You have some of the opportunity funds, some of the small micro lenders out there, and you have resources for those guys too that the SBA is applying. So the other resource I haven't mentioned the whole time too is also you have SBA, which is coming in with some of these government guaranteed loans. Another exciting product set for businesses and how to get them started, how to get them going. They can depend, because of the government guarantee, they can depend a little bit more on projections. So I think there's a lot of upside into the lending world right now, depending on what your profile is.
Okay. So it's not, well, one, you're saying that we've got different lending groups in addition to these different sort of market levels for the customers.
Well, and we kind of talk about that too, because what I think you need to find is a banker who's going to listen and kind of understand your business, and then can kind of make some recommendations on that. So, finding someone who you developed a relationship with and can help you guide you through the process. And because really kind of what we also do as bankers, it's not just, look at can they pay, the paperwork, that stuff you see in the back room, and that mean banker who says no or we say yay. We also try to be value-added consultants. We try to maybe, have you tried this? This is what I'm seeing in your business. Have you thought about this? Or, as you expand, we want to consider this type of structure. Because again, I think what we're trying to form as bankers is generally a partnership with our clients to help them get to the next level. We're all cheering you on to get to that next level.
Okay. So what is a general thought process that a lender has when making business loans?
Again, it kind of goes back to some of those basics I was talking about. It's the credit, it's what is the business, the time in business, what do they do, does that market make sense, are they doing it in a way that, are they making money, do they seem to have good reporting and good cost control? I think that's very key in the small businesses. Have they got their act together in terms of being able to tell me where they're at, or tell themselves where they're at really? Do they have good advisors around them? You as a CPA, about how you also are trying to be an advisor to your clients. Do they have people who they can kind of guide them? I think a small business owner sometimes gets isolated a little bit, having been involved in a small business. And getting sometimes those outside advisors, such as the banker and the CPA, to kind of guide them. Are they using their advice? Like I say, but a lot of it comes down for bankers. Are they going to be? Do they have a primary source of repayment? Do they have a secondary source of repayment? Is the balance sheet intact? Does it have adequate working capital, adequate liquidity? I know one of the things I saw on your sheet was about leverage or their debt to tangible net worth, making sure that the company's not too leveraged up, so that it can handle ups and downs of the business.
So why would a business owner choose to work with a community bank instead of a large bank?
Well, I think the choice kind of again goes back to getting finding a partner that wants to do business with them. I won't say community bank, business bank. I think that there are some different approaches to small business lending and finding what works for you. The bigger banks because of the economics of the situation, do tend to run more of a volume shop. That might be good for some people. They can put the loan in. They don't have to. They talk to their banker maybe once a year, and not a lot of reporting or anything else like that. For a lot of other business owners, though, they like that personal touch. They want to have somebody to talk to. They want to know if there's a problem, they can reach out. If there's a certain situation that requires an adjustment, they have somebody in that office who can make it for them. And that's generally where the more community or / business banks are going to be. They're going to be someone you can pick up the phone and talk to. The product set may be a little different. It's probably generally going to be a little more customized. It's going to be some more paperwork. It's going to be some more reporting. But the trade-off is probably going to be a little bit more responsive and more, like I said, customized to your situation.
Okay. So say that you're starting a small business and you can't qualify for a loan. What sort of alternatives do people like that have?
Well, if you're starting a small business today, and again, having been with a small business owner, I think there are some very good resources out there. And I think there's a couple different things. First off, we have these things through the SBA, these SBDCs, Small Business Development Corporations, or SCORE, places to go where you can sit down and maybe go over your business plan or develop a business plan with a consultant. Mm-hmm. That they can give you an objective opinion, maybe help fine-tune or tweak or see what's in your financial statements and say, well, maybe if you cut here and did this, or maybe you need to expand your market, or you tried something else here. They can come up with a lot of different ideas. The other thing, as I mentioned, if you're a very small business owner, there are microlenders or some of these things like Opportunity Fund is one that comes to mind. I know there's probably others. If you are a business owner and you've been selling a product and you've got receivables, there's also factoring out there. Those type of lenders are out there. They're advertising on the internet quite a bit. So there are different sources for money and capital. There are different prices. There are different risk levels. And you got to see if that fits and if that fits into your profile. And if I wouldn't say just don't borrow money to borrow money. Don't borrow the money if you can make money with it.
Yeah. So I guess sometimes people need to sort of look around them and see what potential sources are for partners or whatever, like maybe family members.
There's family and friends and that type of money that goes into a lot of businesses to help start it up. Clearly that's more patient money, doesn't have the restrictions that a bank or an institutional lender would have. And I think they're going to be there being your cheerleader as well. So again, depending on the type of business, that may be an amount required. That may be one of your better sources. And it's kind of a stepping stone along the way. And, I think people need to look around just to consider a lot of different options. I think once you start looking around, you're always kind of surprised at the different type of resources you can find. I know business owners are generally very passionate about what they do. In that having those outside resources can really help them focus that passion.
Mm-hmm. What about crowdfunding? What do you think about that as sort of a...
I personally I haven't had much experience with it. I know there's been some things out there that work quite well. I see some consumer product companies that have done very well on it. But personally, I'm not as experienced in that. But I think, it's obviously clear, like I said, you look around and you all start seeing you have options, and I think that maybe that's one to consider. I just don't know enough about it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So, I've had some things and watched, of course, a little bit. So, one is my son has developed a card game, and so he did some crowdfunding. It almost, in some ways, ends up being a friends and family thing. And in other words, it's a way that I guess you can sort of create a center, or focus for friends and family to contribute and so forth. So you can go, to your Facebook group and what have you, social media, and then, I'm doing this thing, and so if you can get enough traction, then that can work. I'm trying to remember the name of the fellow, but it was Neil Young. That's who it was. So one thing is the guy's so darn high profile, so he can just say, I'm coming out with this new sound. It's not like a super MP3 player that he developed, and he was able to raise over $1 million in crowdfunding.
Yeah, and I think it helped him pre-sell a lot of orders, if I remember right.
Well, that's
too.
basically
So
it. So
it created some buzz and excitement.
Right.
And that may be something too. But it sounds like to me that it puts some structure into your fundraising with the crowdfunding versus just going and collecting some checks and putting them in the bank. But again, I don't know much about that. Like I said, I think I encourage people to kind of look around and explore options. I mean, banks are clearly a great option and a low-cost option in reality. We don't dilute. We don't take away ownership. So, we provide you the money and hopefully we get paid back.
I guess the issue is that you really don't you really need some sort of a track record in order to...
Generally you do. And let me put it this way to you, Mike, that to kind of keep my risk, people will say banks aren't that aggressive. Mm-hmm. Well, I only get a very small rate of return on my money. But what I do is I take your grandma's money, mm-hmm. and grandma puts it in the bank and I rent it out. And
right.
Grandma's going to want her money back. So
right.
I want to keep that in perspective, as that's what I want to make sure I do get paid, because my margin is very small. And if I lose some money, it's going to take a lot of other loans to make up that money. And so, yeah, we have our risk spectrum. But, like I say, for a business owner, if you don't fit in mine, there are some others, and they're appropriately priced. So if you're perceived as more risky, you'll get some money, but it's going to be a little more expensive. But there are sources. So I wouldn't give up. I'd look around, and then I'd evaluate your options.
Okay. We're going to get into some other things in a minute, but let me throw this out, though. What sort of scope do you think that somebody needs to get into before they maybe start thinking of the alternative of maybe seeking angel investing or some sort of venture? Do you think that's really, a much larger scope operation?
I don't work in that area as much, so I'm honestly not the expert on that one. But clearly, as you step up the ladder and there's more money and bigger partners, yeah, you're going to have to provide the valuations that make the returns attractive to them. So it's going to, the super angels and everything can make some rather large bets. So I think you're getting it. You got to be able to scale it to size pretty quickly. Again, I'm not an expert on that though, but most of my clients are small family or privately owned businesses. So we get some exciting opportunities in that area too. And a lot of it's done by debt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what if a person has an idea for a new business? Okay, is this a lost cause? What do you think that somebody like that should do?
No, I don't think it's a lost cause at all. I think that you need to, like I said, surround yourself with some good advisors, bounce some ideas, listen. For many people, it might be taking some small business classes, as I mentioned, SCORE or the SBDCs or those type of folks out there. Like I said, if you look around, you're going to start to see some resources that are being made available to you to go out and meet with and maybe help formulate your plan, but definitely do a plan. I think that planning will allow you just to kind of think out different scenarios and how to respond to them, and what do you need in the bank, what do you need in funding, and how much do you need to raise, and things like that. It's a good reality check for a lot of people. And then, as you grow, then yeah, the banks kind of come into that. Or do you have an idea that an SBA loan might back up? And a lot of people start at a level or type of loan, type of business that an SBA could back up. So as you start to explore, you can learn these options. And again, talking to a banker, good thing, because we might be able to say, hey, really that falls in this bailiwick, or that falls over here in this bucket. And you get some additional guidance. I mean, we're pretty cheap advisors. We don't charge by the hour, so I'd take advantage of us.
Well, yeah, that's a couple. But like you said, I think one of the things is you mentioned a little bit of maybe getting a little education, and we do have things in the community. We have community colleges that are very
Yes.
reasonable, and have some excellent programs that are available. You need to recognize that in order to have a business, that there are a lot of different skills that are involved.
You wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, so it's not just a matter of, I've got this idea, and somebody or some magic is going to happen that's going to bring this thing out into the marketplace and so forth. One, you need marketing skills. That's a real key. The whole
Yes.
business sort of rotates around that. Somehow you have to get production, and you need to have something that you can rely upon for that. You have to be able to manage it, and then there's the finance function. One, working with your banker, but the other is managing the finances, the accounting, and the other things.
Yeah, I think that, again, I go back and reflect as a small business owner that you wear a lot of different hats. A lot of people tugging at you in different directions. You're the person who's going to make all the decisions. I think people find it very rewarding, but it's also very challenging and very time consuming. But I know a lot of people wouldn't want to work for someone else, and they love it. So I think you got to think that out a little bit when you start to plan a business. Is that you? Is that the person you want to be? And then you also got to recognize am I at a point in my business where maybe I need some other people in too? I mean, that's another challenge. Businesses go through different phases in their life, and again, I think it's where you learn how to use it. You learn how to use resources to help get you there. Learn how to use people and things.
Right.
So
one group that almost every community has that I think can help in this process is the Chamber of Commerce. And so that's a good place to go meet people. They have mixers and other things, and sometimes they have training programs that they do internally.
They do. I also, like I said, I go back to take a look at some of the resources I mentioned. But I want to do something in the last few minutes that's a little bit different than talk about finance today.
Okay.
Because I'm finding out there in small businesses right now, there is one area that is becoming increasingly important.
Okay.
And that's the area of deposits, checking, payments. That area is moving. That's evolving. But it's also the area of cybersecurity. So one of the last messages I'd want to really take a look and tell people is to kind of look at your payment systems and how you're doing things, and check to see if you're using some of the latest, greatest tools the banks may have to help make sure your money's safe. It's just the bad guys are trying really hard to take it. They're spoofing your email and trying to get your colleague to send a wire, or they're getting a hold of your checks and creating copies, and you may not be able to tell for a little bit. And I think use of tools through our treasury management systems in banks, such as Positive Pay or ACH blocking or something, is something to really take a look at for a small business owner. I think it's just one thing. It's one thing to start it, to get it going, but I also say protect it. And I know we're down towards the end, so that's why I wanted to really kind of carry that message today as well.
Good. Well, I'm glad you brought it up. But since you brought that up, here's something that I want to mention, and that is, well, one, fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of people are moving online for their banking, and they're going paperless.
Yes.
And the problem with it going paperless is that you may not be looking at things.
Yes.
And one thing that a business owner should be doing is they should be looking in detail at their bank statement and at the checks and so forth that are clearing their account. Even if you have somebody else doing the bank reconciliation, basically what I always tell people, I prefer almost that it goes to the banker, the owner's residence.
That's commonly suggested, yeah.
Don't even go to the business, go to the resident, but now it's online, so you need to open that darn thing, take a look, and see that you know what the heck's going on there.
Well, it really comes down to some very basic things, like dual control,
Yeah.
Are you taking a look? Are you reconciling on a regular basis? Because that's the way you're going to catch it. And if these guys find a weakness, these bad guys find a weakness, they keep hitting it again and again and again. So having these systems in place, 99% of the time you're not going to find something, but when you do, you can stop it fast, and you can stop your losses. And you can stop, it's going to be a lot easier to deal with it if you nip it in the bud than it is if it goes on for a little bit of time.
Yeah. Well, and also though, it is people, they tend to rely heavily on a few people when you've got a small business.
Yes, it usually is just a
And
few people, yeah.
so what it means though is that then you have exposure, and that's part of the reason why I'm saying you may have somebody else handling your bank account, but you need to watch what's going through that bank account, because that creates the opportunity for abuse and for stealing from you.
So, and I think the tools are very simple. They're out there. Yes, payment systems are going paperless, and it would be great to have another half hour to talk about just that, because I think there is an evolution there, and we're moving a lot of different ways, and it is going to become easier for the business owner. But if I have one message really to existing business owners, it's kind of, let's concentrate on some basics and prevent the problems. As well as we're here to help. I mean, we're here to help grow the business, and we all want to see that happen. But we want to preserve the business to grow it. So,
okay, Paul, I want to thank you so much for
thank
joining
you.
me today, and wish you a happy new year, and
You too, Mike.
hope everything does well at the bank. Folks, hope we've given you some things to think about here today, some good business ideas. We'll see you next time on Financial Insider Weekly.